Hi, my name is Dave Reske, CEO of Now Speed Marketing, and welcome to this edition of Marketing in the Now, where we talk about the best ideas in digital marketing. And my guest today is Mike Ensing, the co-founder and CEO of Revere Inc. Revere is at the intersection of marketing and generative AI and is all about enabling enterprises to address the massive disruption that LLMs and agents are having on search and the brand experience. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. It's great to be here.
Mike, I've been looking at this conversation for a long time. You are one of the leading thinkers in this area, and you've got a lot to say about what's happening in the areas of search and AI and how these tools are coming together. And I'm just excited about the conversation. Before we get into that, you've as a person, you've had some significant experience yourself. You've been with companies like RealNetworks, Microsoft, and so you've been in the tech industry for quite a while. You've seen some amazing things and now you're leveraging your experience into this new area. So yeah,
Yeah, that's exactly right. Really just fabulous run at Microsoft, and then spent a couple years at RealNetworks, where I actually managed a couple AI-based businesses before all the craze happened, and really fell in love with AI, and then started Revere about 18 months ago, really looking at this space and this massive disruption that's occurring in search and for marketers.
yeah, it is a massive disruption. I was just looking up some stats about one of the tools, ChatGPT, and I saw that when ChatGPT launched in 5 days, it took them 5 days, just 5 days, to surpass 1 million users, and now they're doing 4.8 billion visits a month on this.
And actually, 400 million monthly users just announced.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. 400
Yeah.
million individual people that are coming to their website using the tool every month. So
Yep.
we're all
Yep.
using it. It's just making a huge impact. So we're going to talk a lot about your company a little bit later, but I just want to talk about this issue about search and AI. Let's just talk about how search behavior is changing now that hundreds of millions of people are using tools like ChatGPT and other LLMs to learn about the world and get their work done.
Yeah, so I mean, there's several things happening. So one is the platforms that people are using are different. So it is no longer just about Google, obviously. And so you actually have ChatGPT, you have Gemini, you have Llama now. You even have Amazon in the mix with actually Rufus guiding the shopping experience using large language models. And so there's all these users actually going to all these basically LLM-based chatbots. The second thing is that there's basically LLM-based search everywhere. So Google has moved to AI overviews, which is an LLM-based solution. They're actually disrupting themselves, which they absolutely need to do. Perplexity is growing very significantly. 10 million users at the end of last year, but growing 50% every couple months. OpenAI launched Search GPT. And then the other thing that's happening is that all the technology companies are basically embedding LLM based views into all their platforms. So, Apple came out with Apple Intelligence. They're baking LLMs into Siri and redeveloping that. Amazon's doing that with Alexa. Microsoft has actually baked in Copilot into their entire productivity suite. Basically, you're going to have LLMs and LLM technology touching consumers through multiple touch points every day. And then actually, what's also happening is that consumers and professionals are interacting with these chatbots differently. One is session length is much longer. It's a series of questions through the entire customer journey or purchase funnel. And so actually what brands need to do is really understand that it's an iterative conversation versus a one-off, basically retrieval of links and things like that.
Wow, let's just explore that idea for a second. But I think, the idea that this tool is now basically between the brand and the individual, and basically guiding the conversation about the product. And I don't know. We could use an example maybe to talk about this from B2B or for B2C. But as consumers are going through the purchasing process, it sounds like you're saying that they're going to be using this as a tool to kind of help them make decisions, get more information at every step of the
Through
buying.
the entire buying funnel. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
actually, what's interesting is these LLMs have perspectives and views and make recommendations, and so it's up to marketers to sort of understand what these LLMs are saying to both their potential and current customers, and then also optimize and influence that through time.
yeah, so in the past, we as a digital agency, we've done a lot with tools like SEO, right? And so we've kind of assumed that Google would be impartial in the search a little bit. They're not impartial about which uh, brand or which website gets to the top of the search engine ranks, but they're not really giving an opinion about the quality or what they're saying about the product. But what you're saying is like the LLMs are actually they'll have an opinion about what the best toothpaste is, or what the best car is, or what the best plants or whatever. I'm looking at things behind me in my what the best telescope is, right? So they're going to have opinions about these products, and
Yeah,
they
it actually
find a way to
even
influence.
goes, yeah, it actually even goes beyond that, David, because it is not only the best product for a population, it is the best product for a specific individual,
Mm.
right? So these LLMs are going to know everything about you and I, and they're going to make very personalized recommendations based on that knowledge and, based on the content that's out there.
Do you think it's going to accelerate the buying process? Do you think that it will change the buying behavior so that in the past you might say, well, consumers go through a buyer's journey, right?
Ernie, yeah,
We
yeah.
might have to do some research, figure out the category, and then we learn a little bit more, and then we learn about the products, and then we learn about the companies, and then we make a purchase decision, right? And so do you think it's going to accelerate that, or I can just have this conversation, or is it still going to be limited by the ability of individuals to absorb it and make
Yeah,
decisions?
well, I think it will accelerate it from a couple different standpoints. So one is basically this information and these informed views are much more available to the end customer. So the product discovery process, the product evaluation process is much easier for the customer to do. And where this is all going as well from an acceleration standpoint is there'll be a point for some products and purchase decisions where actually the LLM is actually making a recommendation and going all the way through the purchase decision and the execution of that. So it will accelerate this whole process, and that's one of the things that marketers need to take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had just a, small experience on that myself through travel. So, through travel, I was doing a trip to Romania of all places. And I'm asking it, what are the best things to see in Romania and give me an itinerary. And that's basically giving a list of the top 10 things to see. And it's also excluding 100 things not to see, right?
Yes.
And it's kind of
Yeah.
give me that best list. And, it saved me from going to all these blogs and travel websites and other things that I would have normally done in order to do all that research myself. But the implication of that now, using that example, is that there's a lot less traffic to these blogs and websites. So let's talk about the SEO implications of this. So how is organic traffic going to change? How is that going to change as a source of traffic for organizations' websites?
Yeah, so very interesting. I think is the situation you just described is basically the clickless search, and right. So Gartner, several months ago came out with the prediction that organic traffic is going to fall by 25% by 26 and 50% by 2028. And generally, I think that's true. But actually, one of the things that marketers are starting to see is traffic from Search GPT and ChatGPT and other platforms. And actually, we're finding that it is actually making marketers wake up to both the opportunity and challenge because now they're seeing, okay, one, these platforms can be a source of organic traffic. But then secondly, my customers, my current customers, my new customers are using these platforms. So I need to care passionately about how my brand is represented.
So does that change the type of content that organizations should be putting on their website? Should we be trying to make it easier for the LLMs to find answers to questions about our products, services, kind of put more content so that we're informing or influencing the LLMs so they can answer better questions about us? Or will it just figure it out by itself? Are the LLMs smart enough to just take my 5-page website, infer all the answers to all the questions, and serve my customers that way?
Actually, no, you should actually look at content changes. And in fact, an entirely new industry is basically being developed. We coined the industry LLMO, large language model optimization, in an HBR piece we did last summer. I actually think the industry is landing on GEO, or generative engine optimization. In a couple years, it actually could go to AO, which is agent optimization. But there are a whole series of things that marketers need to be doing in the sort of geo LLMO camp around their content, content structure, actually their technical performance of websites. On the content side, one of the things that we know is that these LLMs are very, very purposeful in terms of basically the content they're seeking to support their responses. So really understanding what the user intent is when using these platforms, what are the key prompts, key questions, and actually structuring content accordingly actually provides a higher propensity for that content to show up. So yes, marketers need to reconsider the entire content of their websites, and then also really understand where these LLMs are going to get their information. So there's an entirely new set of sources. Actually, LLMs really like trusted, authoritative sources. They often go out to Wikipedia pages. They go out to industry authoritative voices. And so it's very, very broad. And marketers need to understand, okay, where are they going and how is my brand actually being presented in those forums?
Wow. And that comes back to Revere, right? So
Yes.
tell me about the technology that you've developed, because what you're talking about is seems like a really daunting task. The marketer's going to understand how their brands and their content is being represented with the LLMs. If you want to understand that, in order to do that, you've got to do almost like this infinite number of searches, not searches, but you've got to interact with all the LLMs about all aspects of your product every day to figure out where you're at. And that seems like it's really hard
Yeah.
for marketers to do. And so you've invented some technology or created some technology to help marketers do that. Tell me about the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah. So, one, Dave, measuring sort of brand representation on LLMs is difficult. It's a difficult problem to solve because there are several things going on. So, one is just multiple LLMs, right? So, you have all the foundational LLMs, and then you're going to have agents and things like that coming about. And, it's interesting because the environment is always changing. So, for example, a couple weeks, DeepSeek came out. So, right. So now people are concerned about their, as they should be, brand presence on DeepSeek. So, one of the things that our platform does is actually monitors brand presence across all these different platforms. Secondly, what makes measurement and monitoring hard with LLMs is that they're non-deterministic. So they don't provide the same answer every time. So our technology actually uses multi-prompting synthesis and analysis around an entire set of questions to provide a universal view. The other thing that's hard is what we talked about before, is that these LLMs are highly personalized in nature. So you need to understand how these LLMs are responding by persona and things like that. And then lastly, there's an entirely new set of metrics that we believe marketers should be using to measure brand presence. And one of the things that we've actually come out with is a metric called the Revere Brand Index Score, which is both a measure of reach and overall sentiment. And basically, it is a net promoter score. You're familiar with that. It's a net promoter score for LLMs, or the LLM's propensity to recommend your brand or product through two key dimensions. One is reach, and the second is sentiment.
Wow. So let's just talk about some of the elements that you described there. So you're basically your technology allows you to understand how the LLMs are basically representing the brand, and you're doing it by persona and by LLM, so that basically marketers can kind of unpack that and do something with that. And so that it's not like just as simple, and you said they represented different ways at different times, right? So
Yes,
one, if
yes,
I ask the question today, what's the best toilet paper to use for right for my uses? Um, Today, I might get a different answer if I ask tomorrow, right? So
exactly,
basically, you're
exactly.
you're looking at all those dimensions: time, the LM themselves, the persona that's asking the question, and
Yes,
and that you're basically doing it multiple times and kind of coming up with a score for that. That sounds very
yeah, yeah.
complicated.
Yes, and the other thing that we do, which is really, really helpful for marketers, is we actually monitor competition.
Hmm.
So you can understand how your brand stacks up on the Revere Brand Index score or other key performance measures against competition. And that actually serves a couple functions. One is just in terms of a brand audit or a product audit, that information informs overall strategy, marketing strategy, competitive strategy. And then you can also understand, okay, how it's being represented to the end consumer. So, is brand X being represented better than me, actually, or more frequently? And okay, what do I need to do about that from a content or a LLMO perspective or geo perspective? The other thing that the product does, which is hugely, hugely valuable, is we track all the sources that the LLMs are using, and both from a training database side and then online as well. So I talked about how these LLMs are using different sources, authoritative sources, trusted sources, and things like that. We identify those things, and then we also identify the actions that marketers should take around improving their brand presence with
So
the
let's
LLM.
let's talk about that a little bit for a while. So if you've identified the sources and you've kind of got some recommended actions, what should marketers typically be doing once they learn about the sources of the information or what's out there? Do they try to create, let's say the sources are press articles or their Wikipedia entries or their website or a competitive blog or something like that? So how do they start to influence all of that in order to correct maybe or improve their brand story out there in the LLM universe?
Yeah, so one is actually taking a very active role in managing their brand with these sources or with these communities, right? And so, one of the key sources that are utilized by LLMs is Reddit, right? And so, really, one, understanding that, but then two is, okay, well, how do you actually manage your brand presence in Reddit and monitor your brand presence in Reddit and things like that? Two is from a sort of PR strategy, understanding which authoritative voices are very, very strong and working with them and prioritizing them. Also understanding who are sort of the influencers that the LLMs are going to for this information and then working with them. So there's an entire set of work that a company can do with its own properties, but then actually working with these authoritative sources and then these managing brand presence in all these community forums as well is very, very important.
So this idea of PR or is changing, right? So PR is probably the wrong word, but it's you're really managing your presence, all your content on all these sources to get it right. One of my favorite phrases is that quantity has a quality all its own.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate strategy to just put out more content? If you can't change what CNN wrote about you 3 years ago that the LLMs are putting out there, is a strategy to put out more and more content on multiple blogs, on your own website, answer more questions in more detail so that you can be more accurate for the LLMs? Or should you just find out, the very specific article that maybe they got wrong or they need to correct or improve and fix those couple of things in order to, get your brand represented well?
Yeah, so I think more content is better, but it actually has to be the right content.
Hmm.
And that goes back to really understanding user intent and actually structuring content accordingly. Around hallucinations and things like that, it's important to just get the right factual content out there in a very, very structured way to actually have the LLMs start reading that. The other thing that people are doing, which makes total amount of sense, is they're changing their robot.txt files to allow chatbot access to their content, right? And so that's something that all marketers should be looking at. And then the second thing is that there's an emerging protocol called LLMS.text, which actually provides LLMs instructions on the best way to use their websites. And so marketers should also be looking at that very, very quickly.
So there's a technical aspect as well as a content aspect, as well as almost a PR aspect that's got to be brought together to think about how to represent your own content for the LLMs and put all that together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When it comes to SEO, many companies, maybe most companies, have relied on organic content from Google and others to drive their business, right? So
Yeah.
we've kind of, as an industry, SEO, we optimize websites, basically make it easier for the search engines to find the right content so that we get more organic traffic so that users find what they need, we sell more, etc., right? So should organizations or marketers be changing their expectations of what organic search is? Will search start to decline for most organizations? And, should we be like now really optimizing for LLMs?
Absolutely, absolutely. Organic search, I mean, it's not going to go away, but it's going to decline. And these LLMs and all these LLM-based technologies are going to be the new source for leads. And you got to measure and monitor these LLMs to make sure that you're driving all the way through conversion to sale.
Yeah, they will be the new source of truth, right? So if the
Yes.
LLM represents my brand in this way, that's what consumers really will believe. And so we've had to find out where they're getting those sources and influence those in a powerful way. And that's really what your product does. So a lot of people, when new technology comes about, a lot of people say, well, that's interesting. It's going to happen sometime in the future. I'll get ready for it. Maybe I'll be a late follower. I'll do this later, whatever. We're all busy with our lives, right? When is the tipping point for all of this? We've got 400 million users right now on the LLMs per month. Has the tipping point already happened where marketers are behind the eight ball? And if you're not doing this now, you are behind? Or do we have a few weeks or months? What's your view of the tipping point on this where LLMs become the primary source for
Yeah. It's
buyers?
Dave, it's been really interesting my conversations with CMOs over the last year. And sort of mid last year, late last year, when I actually talked about Revere and basically being at the intersection of generative AI and marketing, they're like, great, help me with personalization or content generation or productivity. And but that conversation since the beginning of this year has entirely changed because brands are waking up that their consumers are and customers are on these platforms. And I actually think one of the sort of key data points that has occurred over the last 2 months or so is people seeing organic traffic from ChatGPT. So we are at the tipping point now. It's only going to accelerate. And the other thing is that brands that act now actually will have competitive advantage because if you're doing activities to better structure your content, you're going to be represented more frequently, more favorably. That's why we also encourage comparison to competition. But brands that act now will have competitive advantage. How long that will last and how long it will take people to catch up still to be determined. But it is a source of competitive advantage right now.
So if you can influence the LLMs with better content, more accurate content, more properly structured content, so that they're representing your brand better than your competitors, it's possible that the LLMs will continue to like your brand better than the competition and
Yes.
represent you better over time. That's interesting. So if the LLMs cite like Coke versus Pepsi now,
Yep.
if Coke can
Yep.
get ahead of that, maybe is a year from now they might still like Coke versus Pepsi better, right? So,
Exactly.
or
Yep.
maybe Coke will continue to push out better or more content at an advanced rate to do that. It's so interesting and powerful. Wow, Mike, this has been a really good conversation about this. Thank you very much for taking the time. If people want to learn about Revere and you and continue this conversation, what's the best way for them to
Yeah,
reach out?
so we're at revere-ai.com. Also, I'm very, very prevalent on LinkedIn, and please reach out. We are actually demoing Lumineer to folks with their own brands and showing them initial data. And we've had just incredibly fantastic conversations and actually marketers saying, wow, I didn't know that about my brand and ChatGPT or Gemini. And so they've been just tremendous conversations. And I thank you, Dave, for this time. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for taking the time, and I'm grateful that you're helping all of us understand this better. This is obviously a massive change in the industry, and your tool is going to make a big difference in how we all survive and go to work every day. So thank you very much for
You're
making that
welcome.
happen. All right.
You're welcome.
Thanks for taking the time. Take care.
Okay, thanks.